Okay, everybody, welcome to Lunch and Learn. And nice to see everybody. First, a shout out to Ivan in Eretz Yisrael. And thank you for joining us. I see you on the screen, live with us. So nice you're joining us and finding the time in your busy day and busy schedule in Eretz Yisrael to join in regards to your family. I'd like to also send a shout out to David in Bolivia. David, thank you so much for coming online. And I see we have an international contingent, so it's nice to be sharing Torah both in America, in New York, and throughout the world. It's an opportunity. Today we're going to visit a topic which we discussed last week, and I'd like to readdress it and with some additional insights. And that was a topic which for me is extraordinarily fascinating, and it's the topic which we find at the end of Sefer Noach, and deals with that which we call the Dor HaFlaga, or the Tower of Babel. And what's interesting about it particularly is that it's really a precursor to a modern event which we've experienced really in our past century. And I don't want to spill the beans just yet what I'm talking about, but I think we're going to see very clearly as we go into it. But I think the question that we have to ask ourselves, as we approach this particular episode, this story, is what exactly did this generation do wrong? What was the problem with building this tower? What was it all about? And what I'd like to do is sort of a close reading of the text. And by that close reading, I think we're going to see something which will help us to define what the problem was, what the issue is, or issue was, or maybe is in Hashem's mind, which is something which he can't tolerate for the world. The world has to progress in a certain direction. And there was something about the Dor HaFlaga, the generation of the Tower of Babel, which was doing something in defiance of Hashem's purpose for creation. And it's somewhat subtle. And so really I ask us as we explore it together to kind of have an open mind to it. Sometimes when we learn a particular story in the Torah, there's a tendency to kind of, in our mind, have a preconceived conception. Someone once used a language, said that there's something called the lullaby effect. The lullaby effect means that, when you listen to a lullaby, you're so familiar with the tune and the words and some of the storyline of the lullaby, you forget to ask questions. For example, we all know rockabye baby on a treetop. When the wind blows, the baby will rock. When the bough breaks, the baby will fall. Down will come cradle, baby and all. We sing it to little children and little kids and babies. We put them to sleep. Supposedly we comfort them by it. But when we just think about it for a moment, we ask ourselves a question like what exactly is the baby doing in the tree? Why did the parents put the cradle up there? What were they thinking? What type of terror did the baby feel when it felt the wind blowing it, and then all of a sudden it smashed down to the ground? What happened to the baby? So the lullaby effect means, when we're so used to hearing something, we forget to think deeply about it. So, I ask us always when we approach a storyline in any aspect of Chumash or in the Torah, that we approach it with ears that perk up to questions. What's the depth of it that Hashem is trying to teach us? So let's look at the story, and we're going to just point out some insights that maybe we didn't visit last week, but I think are very important. So the storyline begins, we find the end of Parshas Noach. It's very short. It's really only maybe 6 or 7 lines. And it begins as it says that this is after the flood. We're approximately 350 years after the flood. I believe from creation, the 6th day of creation, it's 1996 from creation of Adam, the 6th day. The flood, I believe, was 1656. So it says, Vayi kol ha'aretz Safa echas u'devarim achadim. And the whole land was one language, u'devarim achadim, and one purpose. What language did he speak? He spoke Lashon HaKodesh. He spoke, we know, the Holy Tongue, the Hebrew language. And as we know, all languages emerge from Lashon HaKodesh, from Hebrew. The whole world was of one language, u'devarim achadim, and of one common purpose. Now, when we read those words, I don't think we're particularly bothered by them. Those words are, if anything, maybe inspiring. One language and one purpose. It's hard to sense from that exactly what the problem really is when we read that. But let's continue. And it says, "Vayihi b'nosa mikedem." It says they traveled from the east, which I guess would be the land of Israel. V'yimtza'o bika be'eretz Shinar v'yeshu sham. And they settled in a place, in a valley, in Eretz Shinar, in the land of Shinar, v'yeshvu sham. And they dwelt there. Now, we're told a little about the geographic location. It's a biko. It's a valley. Rashi points out, and somewhat surprisingly, gives us even a greater description, and says it's a valley that she'ein sham avanim. There were no stones there. It's interesting to know that it's a valley, it's a biko, they moved away from Eretz Yisrael to a place that there are no stones, and that seems to be a very interesting detail that the Torah is giving us. V'yomer ish al re'ehu. And each man said to his re'ehu, re'us in Hebrew is a very positive word, it's a word of friendship. V'yomer ish al re'ehu, there was harmony between people. Hova nilbana leveinim, v'nisra for the sreifa. Come, let's nilbana leveinim, let's create bricks. V'nisra for the sreifa, and let's burn them to a fire. Utye lahem leveinim la'oven, v'chemer haylehem l'chomer. And let what? Let the bricks be in the place of stone. V'chemer haylehem l'chomer. And the mud became the building material. The chemer haylehem l'chomer, it says. The mud, the chemer, which means the mortar. So, the mud which you normally use to cement stone, that became the chomer, that became the bricks, that became the building material. Again, we read a story like this, and a question I think that goes through our mind is, like, why are we getting these details? What is Hashem trying to communicate to us in the details of the building material? And something very interesting. It's a valley without stones, Bika. They decided to sort of harness technology to create bricks. The bricks, we know we need a massive fire and heat. They take mud and they burnt them to create a brick. And it becomes the chemer haylehem l'chomer. The chemer, the cement, the mud, they turned into the building material, the chomer. We'll come back to that detail, but just something to think about a little bit. No stones, technology, bricks. V'yomru, and he said, Hova nivna lanu yir, come, let's build for ourselves a city. Umigdal rosha b'shamayim, a tower which is its rosh, its head will be b'shamayim. V'nasa lanu shem, and let's make for ourselves a name. Pen nafutz al pnei kol haaretz, lest we become scattered over the entire earth. Now, I guess maybe we could hear a little bit of a hint of perhaps something going a little bit awry. The fact that they say, let's build for us a city in a year. Okay, I guess they want a city. They want a place where there's going to be cooperation and trade and interaction. That's fine. Then they want a migdal, a tower, the Rosh HaShamayim. Now that's the three words that causes us to stop and take pause. And they want the head of it to be Bashamayim, in heaven. Now, oftentimes people want to say there's some sort of rebellion here against Hashem. It's hard to hear what the rebellion is. They want to create a tower, Rosho Bashamayim. There's some aspect there where it sounds like they do want to compete with Hashem. V'nasa lanu shem. Let's make a name for ourselves. It seems the problem is that they want to make a name for themselves. Why? Pen nafutz al pnei kol haaretz, lest we be scattered over the face of the earth. Now, I have to remember, this was a generation that still has a very strong memory of the flood. The flood was 350 years before. The world was repopulated by Noach and his three sons, Shem, Cham, and Yafes. Avram is 48 years old, by the way. Right now he's in the world. Noach is still in the world. Noach is not going to leave the world for another 150 years. There's a direct transmission that the world had been destroyed, and people understood that the world must have been, this is 350 years later, we understood there was, Hashem will destroy it. So it's talked about in the Mefarshim. They were concerned for that. How do we sort of steel ourselves and protect ourselves against another type of disaster? Natural disaster, maybe. So they want to create a city, Migdal Rosho B'Shemayim, again, a tower with its head in heaven. What does that mean? V'nasa lanu shem. And let's make for ourselves a name, lest we be scattered across the earth. We'll come back to that. Let's just keep going. V'yered Hashem liros es ha'ir v'es ha'migdal asher banu b'nei Adam. And it says that Hashem descended to see the city and the tower, asher banu b'nei Adam, which b'nei Adam built, people built. Now again, Yered Hashem is an interesting language. We know we have two names for Hashem. We have Elokim, and we have Yud Hey Vav Hey. Elokim is always the aspect of Hashem's strict justice. In fact, when we read the story of the flood, it's all about Elokim. It's all about God, the Elokim aspect of judgment. Judgment means that we have an obligation to live up to a certain standard and halachot and a moral lifestyle. And when we betray it, well, we've really brought Elokim into the picture. God has to come and be the judge, as it were. But the aspect of Hashem, the Yud Kei Vav Kei, is the idea of Hashem's greater purpose. So when it says V'yered Hashem, we're not saying Elokim. Elokim would imply the judge is coming. It's not the judge, as much as it's Hashem coming down, as if to say, I can't put my finger on in actual halacha that you're violating. I can't say there's a particular law that you have done wrong over here. But Hashem, the aspect of my purpose for creation, the Yud Hey Vav Hey, the aspect that I have a deeper vision for mankind, for the purpose for which I created the world, that has been upset here. And that's why it says, Vayered Hashem, to see the city. Hashem came down to examine the tower. And that which was built by Bnei Adam, Bnei HaAdam. That's interesting. The Rashi points out that he asks a question based on our sages. A city which was built by Bnei HaAdam. Rashi says almost comically based on that. Of course, people of man built it, Bnei, children of man. Who else built it? Children of Chamarim, he says. Children of donkeys, children of susim, of horses. Of course it was the children of people. So it says, now focus on the word Adam. Bnei HaAdam. These are children of Adam Harishon. Adam Harishon, whose sin was really that he denied the good that was done for him. That Hashem gave him Chava, gave him a gift, an Ezer Kenegdo, someone to complete him and to combat his loneliness and to guide him spiritually and to be there for him. And when Hashem turns to him and says to him, why did you eat? What does he do? Of course, he blames it on Chava. So this is a generation, just like Adam lacked that gratitude. Somehow this generation wants to pull Hashem out of the picture. And they want to build a society where Hashem is no longer the focal point, but the human being is the focal point. We're going to build a city, we're going to make for ourselves a name. We are going to create a society which has such harmony that we're going to build such a perfect cooperative system. But no need for Hashem. We want to build a name for ourselves. If they were to have focused on how good Hashem is to them, that Hashem first, he saved them, that they were the generation rebuilding the world after the flood, a generation that's been granted life, a generation that's had the opportunity to be in this world, and focus on all the goodness that Hashem does for them. How could you divorce Hashem from the picture if you're so focused on His goodness? So the Torah is alluding to the fact they were the children Bnei HaAdam, the children of Adam Arishon, just like Adam lacked gratitude. So too the source perhaps that's leading to the mistake in wanting to focus on themselves rather than on Hashem is emanating from a lack of gratitude, a simple lack of gratitude. And I think just how important that is. Just really, it's as a side point that we've spoken often about this concept that gratitude is really the fundamental spiritual ingredient that we need in our life. And the more we are aware of the goodness of Hashem, the more we want the relationship with Hashem. And we don't want to say, I'm going to do it on my own, or I want to make a name for myself. I want to get back to the one who's allowing me to do it. There's a little hint there in the Torah of what the source where the source might have emanated from, where the problem might have originated. But let's just continue and just finish it, and it says, V'yomer Hashem, and Hashem says, Hein am echad v'safa echas, the one nation and one language, the kulam to everybody. V'zeh chilim la'asos, and this is the reason why they began to do this. Ata lo yibatzem mehem kol asher yazem la'asos. He said, now I'm not going to allow them to complete that which they had set out to do. Havanerda v'novla sham sefasam. Come, he's speaking to the court of the angels. Come, let's go down and let's mix up their language. Asher lo yishmo ish esvas ra'ehu, in order that each person will not be able to yishma'u, to listen and hear the language of their friend. And that was Hashem's solution to solve the problem. Vayefetz Hashem osam misham apnei kol haaretz. And once they can no longer speak a common language, there's no reason to stay together. In fact, staying together causes more disunity and disharmony, because we can't communicate with each other. And therefore Hashem does what? He spreads them al pnei kol haaretz, to populate the entire world. Yachdu livno se'ir, and he ceased the project of building the city. That's the story. Again, we read the story, and we don't hear any mention of really what they did wrong. Now, I think we do get some hints by the fact that they want to make a name for themselves. Making a name for themselves, cutting themselves off from God, is in a sense like building a tower up to Shemayim, and it's at some level of rebellion. Our job in this world, of course, is to recognize Hashem as the source, to makniyat atzmeinu, submit and subordinate our will to God's will, which is the whole purpose of creation. That's the greatest way we give birth to our own and genuine personality. We get rid of our own self-interest, our arrogance, as it were, and we submit to God. But again, there's subtlety in that, and that's part of the human heart, and that's part of the problem we're all working on in life. Why had the Torah include this as such a key episode in the creation of the world? And let's see if we could figure that out and discover what they were doing wrong. And I source for this is going to be Shimshon Raphael Hirsch. He's one of the great German rabbis of the 19th century. And there are other approaches to this, and I'm going to admit that from the outset. But I'm focusing right now on the approach of Rav Hirsch, because I think it's a very human approach and a very real approach, and I think it touches deeply who we are. And so I'd like to express it and share it with everybody. And I ask everybody, if you have a question or comment, please feel free to just unmute yourself and step into the conversation. So let's see if we can identify what might be the issue over here. So let's go back to the story. What happened? They went to a place, they left the land of Israel, they traveled from the east, and they went to a Biko Be'eretz Shinar, they went to a valley in the land of Shinar, which is currently Iraq, that's Babel. Vayeshvu Sham, and again, Rashi gives us that little hint. There were no stones there. Now, did they go there because there were no stones? Is that specifically why they went there, or because they were there, they realized there were no stones? We're not told, but we are told they went to a place there were no stones. V'yomu ish al re'ehu, and each man said to his friend. Now here is I think might be where the turning point in the story is. Nilmad al neveinim. Let's create bricks. V'nisruf al l'sreifa, and let's burn them l'sreifa. Burn them, that means let's burn them, let them be burnt to a fire. Interesting, doesn't just to a fire, the sreifa. You have a sort of a vision or like an imagery of an enormous technology over here. Uti lahem alevena la'oven, and let the bricks be a stone. Interesting. V'hachemer chaya lahem l'chomer, and let the mud be the chomer, build the building material. Let's see if we can analyze this first. And this is Rav Hirsch, and I think it's so beautiful, I'd like to share it. First of all, what's the difference between bricks and stones? when one builds with stone, stone is somewhat difficult to work with because each stone has its unique personality, its unique shape, its unique dimensions, its unique feel and texture. To work with stone and put many stones together in a way that you create a building, it takes a lot of skill. Because how do you take things that don't really belong and fit them together almost like a jigsaw? So you have to shave a little bit here, you have to shave a little bit there, and you have to you put cement in the middle, you have to combine them in a very beautiful way. And that's why when we see a stone edifice, a stone building, there's something very appealing about it architecturally, because it's very difficult, and each stone kind of speaks to its own personality. Each stone seems to talk to you. I think one beautiful example of this is, when we're in Eretz Yisrael and we're looking at the Kotel. Especially if those of us have been to Eretz Yisrael, and you come down those steps, right near where Yeshu Torah is, and you walk down, and you just kind of stop and freeze and stare and look at the Kotel, and you get lost in it. And you look from this stone to that stone, and what you see is each stone has its own personality. Each stone has its own color and texture and shape and thickness. And just looking at each one, and your eye wanders from this one to that one, and yet it all fits together in such a perfect collage to create that beautiful structure which we refer to as the Kotel HaMaravi. But it's that combination of diverseness together that creates the beauty. For some reason, those people who wanted to build this tower did not want to use stone. They wanted to use brick. What's brick? Brick means we're going to take mud and we're going to heat it and bake it at a very high temperature, and we're going to create a building material that's completely uniform. Complete and absolute uniformity. Now, with that uniformity, you can accomplish a lot, by the way. You could build, huge towers. You could build large buildings, and at a much cheaper expense also. I see my phone just died over here, so I apologize to those who are listening. But you could build in a way that it is much faster. You could build much bigger, and the reason why is because you have a building material which is uniform. There's a uniformity in it. Now that's interesting. Stones speak the language of individuality, and brick speaks the language of uniformity. These people, this generation, did not want stones. They didn't want something which said each and every one is unique and different. They wanted to utilize something which was completely the same. Now, Rav Hirsch points to this, and it seems that this underlies a certain approach he had to the new society. The society was not going to be one where the individual stood out. It was going to be one where there was a conformity of individuality. And perhaps what they were thinking was, if we're going to achieve our mission, if we're going to build a society which is so harmonious, which is so cooperative, which has such perfection in commerce and medicine and technology, and so, if a person is going to stand up and say, I want to be different, that person is going to interfere with the goal of the society. We want uniformity in order to accomplish the goal. The goal is to build a utopia. The goal is to build a perfect world. The individual is a necessary building block of that perfect world. Now, it's interesting. Listen to how beautifully the words express this concept. It says, what do they want to do? It says, they wanted to take the bricks and let the bricks be used as the stone. The chemer means the material. The chemer means the mud. Mud is normally used, if you're going to build a stone, what do we use mud for? If you're going to build a stone, what the mud does, it takes the stones and cements them together. The mud, as it were, is the means to achieve the end. The goal is that we want this beautiful stone building, but you need the mud as the cement. What did they want to do? They wanted to use the chemer hayalem l'chomer. The chemer, the mud, is now going to be the building material. That which is supposed to be the means is now becoming the end. The chemer hayalem l'chomer. The chemer, the mud, the raw material for brick, that's going to be the chomer, the building material. In other words, what's the real purpose of cement, of mud? It's the means to attach stones. They want to take the mud and they want to turn the mud, so to speak, into the stone, into the building material. The means becomes the end. Cement is supposed to be the means for an end. What are they doing? It's just to be a means to achieve a stone edifice. They want to take the means, so to speak, the cement, and that becomes the end, that becomes the purpose. The chemer, the cement, becomes the chomer, the verse says. The cement, the means, becomes the end. Now what's significant about this? This was a generation that wanted to build a perfect utopian society. A society of absolute cooperation, where perhaps a society is so cooperative and technologically secure and secure financially and commercially, we're not going to be scared of any natural disaster. We're going to protect ourselves from within. And the human being is going to be the means to help us get there. Hashem comes down and says, you have it all backwards. The goal of this world is that every human being matters. The perfect purpose of society is to support and to allow every human being to flourish. Now listen to what it says. I've heard quotes in Medrash, and famous quotes actually Perky Rabbi Eliezer. It says like this, and maybe this sums it all up. Im nafal Adam, as they're building this tower, Im nafal Adam u'meis, if a human being would fall off the tower as he was involved in this building project, no one cared, no one paid attention. However, if a brick would fall, they would sit and they would cry, Oy lanu, woe to us, when will we find another brick to replace it? What's the Precursor Rabbi teaching us in the amazing Midrash? The brick is only the means. The brick becomes the end. The human being becomes dispensable, as it were. The purpose of this society is to enable the human being, to the individual, to flourish. But what do we see from this Medrash? The human being becomes a means to build a tower. So if a human being falls, I will get another one. Oh, but if progress is held back, if a brick falls, well, now we cry. The goal is the society at the expense of the individual. That is in counter distinction. That is the exact opposite of what Hashem wants for this world. The purpose of this world is that every human being matters. Every human being is created in the image of Hashem. We say every morning, Elokai neshama shenasata b'torei. My God, the neshama that you gave me is pure. We're created with some Elokim. There's godliness in every human being. Every human being has a different face, illustrative of the fact there's a different internal makeup. As another word for face is panim. The word for the internal side of who we are is pinim, same word. Because our face expresses a unique aspect of a soul which is totally unique. The purpose of this world is that every individual should be able to allow himself to express, or herself, to express his absolute purpose. And society is built to, the cooperation of people to create society is to facilitate the uniqueness of every human being. But when it's turned around, and the goal becomes the society, the goal becomes a beautiful world of cooperation, but at the expense of the individual doesn't matter anymore. If a human being would fall, we'll get another one. If a brick would fall, oh my gosh, what's happening to our society? It's backwards. You hear the language of the Torah? The chemer hayalem the chomer. The building material, so to speak, the cement, became, or the cement, that which was used to create, so to speak, building material, became the goal. That became the building material. The chemer, haylem, the chomer, the cement which is there to facilitate a beautiful structure, the cement becomes, so to speak, the goal. The society which is supposed to facilitate the growth of the individual, the society becomes the goal at the expense of the individual. That's a society that Kadosh Baruch Hu, that the Almighty cannot tolerate. Because that's a violation of the purpose of His creation. The purpose of His creation is that we recognize that every human being is unique, every human being has a purpose, every human being has a function. Every human being is created in the image of God and therefore has to be treated as such. Now, of course, we need a cooperative society, we do. But it's only so that each and every individual should function. When it's turned around and the means become the ends, the mud becomes the goal to create brick. That which is supposed to be just a mean to cement becomes the building material. The mean becomes the end. The society becomes the end. And the individual becomes the building material. There's a danger in that. That's a world that the Baruch Shalom says that's not what I created. And therefore he comes down, and he comes down in the aspect of Yud Hey Vav Hey, of Hashem. Because I can't point to the fact and say, you're doing something specifically wrong. No, you're violating the Yud Hey Vav, the Yud Kei Vav Kei. You're violating the purpose of my creation, the bigger picture. That every human must flourish within the cooperative essence of a really functional society. That's the vision for mankind. Now I hinted to at the beginning of the talk, beginning of the class, that we've witnessed, almost in our generation, a society that was built on the ideology of the Dora Afloka, the Dora of the society of the Tower of Babel. What am I referring to? I'm talking about communism, the Soviet Union. Let's build a utopian system. We're going to have a beautiful cooperative society, and it's going to be so cooperative, we don't need God. In fact, technology will take the place of Hashem. God is in the past. It's all about man coming together and creating a beautiful utopian world where there's not going to be oppression. There's not going to be hunger. It's going to be a combination. There's not going to be greed. Everyone's going to come and be part of this great cooperation, the proletarian society. Oh, but if you're getting in the way because you have a different vision, you're getting in the way because you have different ideas about God, you're getting in the way because you want to say, I want to live my own life in a unique way, well, you're dangerous to society. You're dangerous to the vision and the mission. We have to get rid of you. Over 30 million people were killed in the name of this utopian society. From the revolution in 1919 through death of Stalin in 1953 and even after. Over 30 million people died because we were considered to be enemies of a perfect society. When man says we want to create without God, man is free to do whatever he thinks he wants to do. And what will happen inevitably is that the human being will cease to be important. The vision of the Torah is that each and every human being is of such value. And the purpose of the world, the purpose of a good society, and a healthily functioning society, which is part of the Torah vision, is so that every individual will be taken care of. The poor will have what they need. The orphan will be taken care of. The widow will be provided for. Those who are handicapped in some way will be provided with dignity. The old will be helped. It will be a world where the society does work together, but never at the expense of the individual, to enhance the individuality and the uniqueness of every human being. And that, I think, is such an important lesson of this story. Never do we say the human being is not important. Every human being is created in God's image with such a mission, such talent, such uniqueness. In a world which wants to deny that uniqueness and say the society is the goal and the human being is just a means to create it. That's putting the means as the ends. The cement becomes the building material. The means becomes the ends. That's the metaphor that the Torah is illustrating to us. And that, of course, is what Kodesh Baruch Hu says. That's a world that can't exist. That's a world that's denying the Yud Kei Vav Kei, the purpose of creation. How careful we have to be to realize that Hashem's will in this world is that we recognize uniqueness in every human being, individuality in every being, the importance of every human being. And never forget that that is God's message to us. And by doing so, that's the way we truly build a beautiful utopian world. I'll see everybody next week.